By using this plug and play, the devices will become efficient in order to detect as well as configure the operating system automatically. What's the functionality of input device? Obviously, it is used to convert the human readable form into machine understandable form. This register gives the information like whether to start or stop the data transfer. Hello, my dear students. So, welcome you all to the second session of first unit. That's digital computer organization, which is a first subject of bachelor's of computer applications. So yes, in last sessions we have discussed like the definition of computer, what is computer, and then we have understood like the evolution, how the computers are been evolved, that's starting from a simple abacus towards the digital computer systems. So what's the evolution? And then we did also discuss the characteristics of computers. So yes, we are utilizing computers, but what's the main character, why we are so dependent on the computer systems? So we have also discussed these characters of computer systems in our last session, and also we had discussed the generations of computer systems. So yes, under this we did discuss the main features or the key features of each and every generation. So let me tell you, this is very important topic with respect to exam point of view. So yes, you have still more facts regarding your exam. So I just request you to go back and watch that first video and then continue with the second session. So yes, after that, that's a generation of computer system. We did discuss the types of computers, like what are the different types, how the computers are being classified, and then we did also discuss the components of a computer system, like yes, what are the components which are included to form a computer system. So these are all the things which we did discuss in our last session, right? So let's heading forward in towards this session. The agenda of today's session as we'll be discussing about the peripheral devices and also the input output interference. So this is with respect to today's session. So let's begin our session, that's peripheral devices. So over here you can observe the peripheral devices. All right, so let's understand what is the definition, what's exactly the peripheral devices meant. Okay, peripheral devices are the external hardware components. Yeah, so it's external hardware components which are connected to a computer to either give input, that's either input data into the system, or we can also consider we can output the data from it or also expand its capabilities. So altogether we can say peripheral devices are the hardware components which are connected to the computers in order to support the input, or we can say the output, we can receive the output data from it, or we can also extend the device memory or the capabilities. So yes, this is nothing but a peripheral devices. Over here it's necessary to understand an important point, that these peripheral devices are not always being connected to the computer system. We can say are not a part of core computer architecture, but it plays a very essential role in computer operations. So this is nothing but a important point with respect to peripheral devices. So let's see what are the peripheral devices used under input device. As an input device, we can use as a keyboard or a controller, a mouse, or a touch screens. All these things are the input. Let's see what are the different outputs which are considered or used as a peripheral devices. So that's a printer, a laptop, a speaker, as well as a handset. So yes, these are few examples of the peripheral devices. Up next, let's understand what are the different characters of the peripheral devices. So over here, the first one is external to the CPU. So yes, we can say the peripheral device is located outside the CPU. It's not internal, correct? So yes, that's the first point. And up next is the need for interface. Yes, there is a need to handle the data formats because we can't consider the data as a raw, correct? So we have to process it. So process is nothing but it is required to convert the data or synchronization and also in data buffering. So these are the main things which are involved in processing of a data. So there's a requirement or a need for interface over there. The third point is it's slower than CPU. So obviously, if it's outside or external to the CPU, it will always be lesser in speed compared to the CPU, right? So yes, peripherals generally operate slower than a CPU, right? So up next, we need the device drivers in order to support this interface. So yes, the input and the output peripheral devices, it needs a device drivers in order to support the computer system. Yeah, so that's what it needs. The software driver for the operating system to recognize the device properly. So yes, there's a requirement or a need of a device driver. Okay, so up next, plug and play option. By using this plug and play, the devices will become efficient in order to detect as well as configure the operating system automatically. So that's the next character of our peripheral devices. Up next, we can say the devices which are considered to be as a peripheral devices. It can be either wired or wireless. So few examples for wired are like USB as well as the HDMI. USB not all the times, like in sometimes we can have a wired USB devices. And next we have the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi for wireless. Okay, so these are few of important characteristics of our peripheral devices. Great, right? So let's move forward. This is the classification of peripheral devices based on the functions. So let's see what are the different peripheral devices we have broadly classified under the functionalities. Okay, so the first one is input devices. As we all know, input device is used to input the data or the information into the system. Okay, yes, what's the functionality of input device? Obviously, it is used to convert the human readable form into machine understandable form, correct? So that's, we can say, the human readable form is being converted into the machine language, or also we can call it as a binary language. Up next, let's see what are the different kinds of input devices which we can coin it as a peripheral device. So yes, obviously starting with a keyboard. So yes, we all know this, but let's recall all these things once again. So yes, the main function of a keyboard is to input the textual data, correct? So yes, over here, it is required for inputting that textual data or textual input. Up next is the mouse. It is used to control the pointer movement on the screen, right? So up next is a scanner. Scanners are used to capture the text or images and convert it into the digital format. So as we can observe here, yes, it is captures printed text or images into the digital format. Yeah, up next, the next device under input is a microphone. So as we all know, it is used to capture the audio input. Next is a webcam. Webcam is used to capture the video as well as the still images. And the last one is a barcode reader. So as we all observe this barcode reader in our shopping malls, correct? So yes, let's understand that functionality of barcode reader. Yes, exactly. It scans barcodes for product identification. So what it does, it scans the products for that barcode identification. So these are few important input devices which we can consider it as a peripheral device as well. Great, right? So yes, these devices are not at all connected with CPU directly, but yes, all these devices are necessary in order to make a system complete, right? Next classification, so it's output devices. Let's see what is the functionality or what is the output device. Yes, output device is used to present the process data from the computer to the user. Okay, so yes, the process data will be sent from the computer to the user. So this is the output device, and as we all know, the main functionality of output device is to convert that machine language or we can also say that digital data into human understandable form, or we can also say in the form of text or images, correct? So yes, in a form of text, images as well as sound. So yes, these are the main functions of the output device. Now let's see what are the different kinds of output devices. So the first one is a monitor, which we know that the main functionality is to display the processed output, correct? Yes, as you can observe, it is used to show visuals output like text, image as well as videos. Isn't it great? We can see all the formats in the same monitor screen. So just consider a monitor used to just see the text, and one more monitor to have a look of images, and one more monitor to see the videos. So it is so complex, right? So yes, this complexity is been reduced to single monitor, which is because of our operating systems. Okay, great, right? As well as including operating system, we also utilize the interfaces all together in a single system that's on a single monitor screen. Yeah, that's the capability of our operating system or a interface. By using these interfaces, we can use multiple devices. We can provide that functionality for a computer system. Great, right? Let's head with next output device, that's a printer. So yes, the printer produces hard copies of digital documents. Obviously, yes, we'll get that hard copy, correct? The output. Next output device is a speaker. So yes, the speakers are used to output that audio into sound waves. That's a digital audio into sound waves. Up next is a projector. So yes, we do have the projector as our output device. The main functionality of a projector is to display output on a large screen for groups. So these are few key peripheral devices which are considered and used as output devices, right? So let's head with the next thing, that's the input output devices. So yes, as we can see, this has a combined functionality of both input devices as well as the output devices. So yes, these devices can both receive data from and send data to the computer. It can receive data from and it can send the data to the system or the computer. Yes, the main thing to note in this is it's bidirectional. So they support bidirectional communications. This was the main thing which we need in order to be updated with the technology. That's this input output devices. So let's see what are the different devices which we can utilize as a complete input and output device. Yeah, the first one is most widely used. That's a touch screen. It's time to reveal that the touch screen what we use in our day-to-day life. So is it a peripheral device? If it's yes, so what kind of peripheral device is it? So is it used for input? Is it used for output? Learning in this video. Yes, it's time to reveal that. So you can observe the touch screen over here, which is under input output device. So we can say our touch screen, what we use in our day-to-day life, that's in a handset, in our mobile phones, in our touchscreen laptops. So yes, we can define all these as an input-output interference. And over here, you can see it is capable of accepting touch input as well as displaying the output simultaneously. So yes, that's an interesting fact with this topic. Great, right? So the next one is an external hard disk or a USB drive. So yes, all our pen drives is used or utilized as both input and output device. Okay, so now let's see what the pen drive is used for. Yes, exactly, it is used to read and write the data. Next one is a modem or the network interface card. That's an NIC card. So this you can observe in your Wi-Fi's. Okay, so yes, this is utilized to send and receive data over the networks. Great, right? So up next we have CD and DVD raw drives. So yes, these CD and DVDs are utilized to allow reading as well as writing the data, that's by using optical disk. So yes, we can read from or write our data into the optical disk. So these are few key examples of input output devices. Okay, let's head up with the next thing, that's an input output interface. So yeah, the definition of input output interface is it provides the method for transferring data between internal storage devices like memory or CPU and the external peripheral devices. So this is a definition of our input-output interference. Let's understand what are the key functions or the functionalities supported by our input and output devices. So it includes, the first one is a data transfer. So yes, data transfer is made easy between the input and output devices because of this input-output interface. Up next, the second one is the control signals. So yes, this control signal, as the name itself indicates, it manages the commands as well as the status signals. Up next is the error handling. So yes, error handling, it is very important to detect the error as well as manage it or handle it. So yes, these both functionalities are supported under this. So you can say detection of error as well as managing of errors both are possible, and it is one of the key feature of our input output interface. Okay, so the next one is buffering. Buffering is used, it temporarily stores data in buffers. So now it's time to understand what exactly is a buffer is. So yes, don't worry, buffer is not that complex. Okay, whenever you are trying to shift information, let's consider from A to B. Okay, yes, let's consider we are sending the information or the data, and we need to transfer the data from A to B, from A location to B location, and at that point of time we need to safeguard our data, isn't it, while transferring, if in case the data losses or in any case like the power offs, so then the data will be lost, correct? In order to safeguard our information or data, we need to store that information or the data which is sending in some safe place. Okay, so that place in the memory, we call it as a buffer. Okay, so yes, this is a space in memory where you can store this data, yeah, where you can store this data, and this space we call it as a buffer. So yes, this buffering is also provided by this input output interface. Great, right? Let's move forward and understand the components included in the input output interface. Okay, the first one, the data bus. Yes, we need that data bus in order to transfer only the data or the information. And up next is address bus. Address bus, as the name itself specifies, it is used to store the data or transfer the data. So yes, it identifies both the source as well as destination addresses. Great, right? So up next is the control lines. Oh yes, this is very important. It is used for synchronization. Okay, synchronization signals with respect to read and write. So yes, if read and write both goes in hand and that's in synchronized way, only then we can extract that exact input or an efficient input. So that synchronization is very important, and it is completely handled by this control lines. Up next, the next component is the data register. So yes, this is a space where we can store the data temporarily. So temporarily stores data. Up next is a status register. So yes, this is also very important one, because depending on our status, we can just verify, yes, what are the things which is being on. Yes, so status registers, it holds the status flags like ready if the signal is ready, wait if the system is busy, or error if there is any error while receiving the data or while transferring the data. So this is monitored by the status signal. And the next one is a control register. So yes, this register gives the information like whether to start or stop the data transfer. Okay. So yes, up next. So let's study the input-output interference components. Okay. So yes, over here we have one more signal, that's a control signal, which is used to specify some meaningful things like input output read, input output write, interrupt request, and the acknowledgement. So these are few signals with respect to controls. Okay. So these are very important signals with respect to the control signals. Great, right? So yes, let's go with this diagram. So yeah, we have a CPU and the memory. So yes, if I want to send my information from CPU to memory, I need that interface, that's input output interface. We need a input device keyboard. If it has to pass any information, then it needs that interface. So yes, that's the input interface which is required. So yes, it is being interrupted and it is being taken forward. The information from the keyboard towards the CPU is taken forward by the control lines. Okay. And up next, we have the separate control data as well as the address lines in order to take care of our information which we sent through our keyboard. So same thing happens with respect to the output device, that's a monitor. Yeah, so even we are utilizing this output interface. So over here we need that interface which is called as the output interface, and over here we need a input interface. So yes, you can observe that interface is used in each and every device. So it may be either a input or a output. So everywhere we need that interface so that our function goes effectively. So up next, even we can see the hard drive, which we can consider it as an IO device, that's an input output device. So even it is been connected with an interface. So what this interface is called as? Yes, exactly, it's called as input output interface. Understood? Yes, these are the basic components of a input output interface. Great, right? So let's ahead. Let's see what are the different types of IO interfaces. The first one is the serial interface. So yes, serial, has the name itself specifies, the data is transferred bit by bit. Okay, so the examples will be RS-232, that's a cable which is used for interconnection, and then the USB. So yes, we'll be always saying yes, USB device, but what's the full form of USB? So it's none other than Universal Serial Bus. Okay, so now let's see how the data is transferred by taking an example. Okay, so let's consider we have a data. Okay, that's a data of 10, and if I want to send this data by using serial interface, then how the data can be sent? So let's consider this has a interface or the channel for communication. So over here the data will be sent bit by bit, though initially the LSB will be sent. So yes, the LSB bit will be sent, and up next the second bit, that's the 1, will be sent, which is a MSB. So you can't send both the bits at the same time. So that's because the data is sending in a serial way, one bit after the other. Great, right? So this is a serial interface. Okay. Second one is a parallel interfaces. So what happens in parallel interface is the information can be transmitted, multiple bits can be transmitted by using multiple channels. Okay. So yes, let's see the example for this parallel interfaces. It's parallel printer ports as well as the older computer buses. All right, let's see the example for this parallel interface, and let's believe we have a data. Okay, let's see the parallel interface example. Okay, so let's believe we have a data which is data 1 has 0, 1 and data 2 has 1, 1. Now, if you want to send this information, then how you can send? So let's see how the data passes. So parallel, as the name itself says, you'll be having parallel channels. That's a multiple channels. Now you can not only send a single bit, but you can send that entire data at a time. So let's believe my data 1 will be transferred over here in this channel. That's a complete data 0, 1 will be transferred, and at the same time you can utilize the second channel or the multiple channels which is parallel to the first channel. So that's my second data. So even I can transfer that. So yes, this is how the information will be transferred in the parallel interface and in the serial interface. So we have one more type, that's a network interfaces. So this is responsible in order to manage the communication over the networks. Okay, so let's see the example. So the examples for this is an Ethernet or a Wi-Fi. So yes, this is different kinds or types of the I/O interfaces. I believe it's clear. Yeah, great. First one is a programmed I/O. So over here, the CPU initiates, okay, the input as well as it also completes that output operations, okay, all I/O operations, and it actively polls, this is very important, actively polls the device status. So what is meant by polling is nothing but actively checking for the events either than just waiting for the interrupt to come, interrupt and then take a handover. This polling will continuously verifying or checking the system, like whether is there any events which is up next to be handled. All these things will be monitored, and this term we call it as polling. Okay, so up next is a second one, interrupt driven input output. So as the name itself specifies, the input output is monitored by the interrupt. Okay, so yes, device interrupt CPU when ready for communication. At that moment, what happens? The CPU just it stops the current activity and then it will start with the new activity. Why? Because it's been interrupted. Third one is a direct memory access. So as the name itself specifies, we can access the memory directly without the intervention of the CPU. So that's nothing but direct memory access. So you can have a look here, and because of this DMA, it improves the data transfer efficiency. Correct, right? So when there is no intervention of CPU, again and again simply going towards CPU, taking the permission and again getting back to the memory, this is time consuming task, isn't it? So over there, sometimes we have that confidence like, yes, my information is correct, I don't want CPU intervention. At that time, we can call this interrupt and then we can directly access the memory instead of going towards the CPU and then towards the memory, right? So up next is the input output processor. This is a very specialized processor which is capable of handling multiple IO devices. Yeah. So yes, it is used to control multiple IO devices, and even it executes the programs independently of the CPU. Yes, these are the IO management techniques. This was our today's session. Up next in the coming session, we'll be discussing about the memory organization. So how the memory is being organized within the computer system. So yeah, this was with respect to today's session. Thank you.